Helima, always great to have you here. Way too many moving parts for me to keep track of. So what is the most important moving part in the oil markets right now?
I mean, I think the big story for the last sort of week has been the Saudi resolve to basically get prices higher. I mean, when they basically came out and announced they were going to take production below 10 million barrels, they're like, we'll do this on our own backs if necessary. But they've had important assists. I mean, Venezuela is the crisis that keeps getting worse by the day. They're under U.S. sanctions. There's a tremendous standoff with the delivery of U.S. aid. You know, you have the Venezuelan military essentially saying to President Trump, we're not going to help you out here. Over our dead bodies is Maduro going to go? So this crisis is actually getting worse in Venezuela. And then you mentioned Nigeria. They had postponed their elections over the weekend. They're having elections on Saturday. That's a very important oil producer to watch because elections have been accompanied by disruption in the past.
Can we just focus on Venezuela for a bit? We know just how big of a producer they are. We know that a lot of that production is kind of now locked in because the U.S. is not buying any of it.
Right.
So as we talk about the pressures mounting there, the oil market certainly is reacting, but it doesn't seem to be reacting so critically to what's happening there. Take us through why the oil market is holding up relatively well given the crisis in Caracas.
Well, I think for now, people are very focused on the fact that the real disruption has been from Venezuelan barrels to the United States. You have seen an increase in Venezuelan barrels going into places like India, for example. So I think the next thing to watch would be, A, whether the U.S. sanctions makes it harder for Venezuela to extract the oil from the ground, to taking production lower, or whether the U.S. decides to employ secondary sanctions and essentially says to India and China, if you take those Venezuelan barrels, we're going to sanction you, just like we sanction you if you take too many Iranian barrels. I think that would be the next step in sanctions that could really take Venezuelan barrels off the market, which would obviously push prices higher.
Do we have a situation developing there where we could see the military get involved in the oil market directly, i.e. going to fields, maybe, kind of blocking or getting people to produce things?
Well, this is a great question, Dominic, because really what we've seen, like why Venezuelan production, I think, has really cratered over the last sort of year has been the fact that the military has taken over the oil sector. I mean, you have an oil minister now, Quevedo, who's actually the OPEC president, who has no experience in the energy sector. He'd been, in the National Guard as a general, accused of human rights abuses. He had no industry experience. So what he's essentially done is turned the national oil company into a piggy bank for the military. So they haven't been investing in infrastructure. They basically used PDVSA to feed themselves, feed the military beast.
So you mentioned Nigeria. I can't let you leave without talking a little bit about that. The biggest oil producer in Africa, sub-Saharan. So what exactly are the implications for this upcoming election?
I mean, the reason why we focus on Nigeria is Nigerian elections have tended to be accompanied by a lot of violence in the oil region. And we've had 3 elections since military rule ended in 1999. We've had the rise of armed militant groups who've taken off between 800,000 and 1 million barrels of Nigerian production. So we watch it very closely. Nigeria is a country like Libya where production tends to swing wildly based on security events. So if we have a volatile election this time, if Nigeria reverts back to past practice and we start to lose barrels, given everything going on in the market right now, that's a catalyst for moving much higher.
Many catalysts to keep track of. Helima, thank you so much for that update.